Inside the halls of San Diego State University lies a program dedicated to storytelling and pursuing the truth. Welcome to Where You At, a podcast that takes you inside the work of alumni for the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State. Our goal is to show the success of our alumni, inspire students with the stories, and connect students and alums on a pathway to journalism success. And now, here's your host, Josh Suchon.
This week on the Where You At podcast, we are heading to the land of enchantment, Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's an in-person edition of this podcast, and I'm really excited about this week's episode because we're going to talk about being a local TV sports reporter, also being a sports radio talk show host, and what it's like organizing a bowl game. Our guest is Jeff Siembieda. He attended San Diego State in the 1980s. He is currently the executive director of the Isleta New Mexico Bowl. He's run that bowl since 2006. He is also the co-host of the opening drive on KNML The Sports Animal in Albuquerque. He previously worked in Yakima, Washington, Tri-Cities, Washington, San Diego. He's been a lot of other things as well, which we'll get into. He was the VP of Media and Entertainment for the New Mexico Scorpions Hockey Club. He has had a vast career. Jeff, welcome to the Where You At podcast.
Wow, Josh, good to see you. Thanks for including me on this. I feel like I just saw my life flash in front of my eyes like that and got really old really quickly.
Well, whenever someone has the background of you, it's always interesting on where I want to begin because I feel like we could do a 3-part series, but we're not. So let's look at this professionally.
Yeah. What
makes you most proud? When I list all of those things that you've done, what you're doing now, from a professional standpoint, what do you say? Man, I'm proud I did that.
So I'm most proud of creating, running, maintaining, and growing a bowl game in a place where everybody told me it will not work. I enjoy all of the broadcasting I've done. I've enjoyed from being a TV anchor and radio host and play-by. I love all of that. But the way you said that is what am I most proud of professionally, that we have been able to do something in Albuquerque, New Mexico that tangibly makes this place better, that contributes to the economy, that is a sense of pride for our community, that we're one of now, and I say we, right? You and I have been here for a minute. I've been here 28 years in Albuquerque. I raised my daughter here. But that in this community, when I represent Albuquerque in a room, and I'm sitting there with San Diego and Miami and Los Angeles and DC and all the great cities in America, and we belong at that table. And next year will be the 20th anniversary of the Isleta New Mexico Bowl. And when we started, and I was working for Governor Richardson and tasked with creating and attracting and promoting sporting events to the state of New Mexico, everybody asked me, and I say everybody, I mean almost everybody, what are you going to do when the bowl game dies? And I was the only one dumb enough to think the bowl game was going to be around for a while. And here we are looking around at all the things and you know, what are we going to do to celebrate 2 decades? So I'm most proud of that because it's really contributed to the quality of life in our community, contributed to the economy in our community. And I do believe contributed to the prestige in our community a little bit too.
All right, we're going to get into more details about what it means to be the executive director of the bowl game. But I want to rewind first, though.
Yeah.
When you're 18 years old,
yeah,
you're finishing high school, you're starting college. What did you think you were going to do? What did you want to do with your career compared to how it is now?
Yeah, I wanted to be a sportscaster, and I'm not even sure I knew what that meant. Did I want to be a play-by-play guy for a team? Did I want to be a TV broadcaster? What I did know is, and I think there's a really big difference. Like when I got into TV, I wanted to be in TV. It wasn't about being on TV. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference. And you when you're in the industry, right, you know people who want to be on radio as opposed to people who want to be in radio, right? You get into something because you enjoy the pace, the challenge, the everyday, the grind. The people who want to be on TV just want to be on TV, mm-hmm. right? Look at me. So I knew I wanted to be in it. Like I enjoyed it. And I remember my first broadcast for KCR radio.
Yes, shout out.
In Peterson Gym. Aztec volleyball against Cal State Fullerton back in 1983. And I remember, like, it's crazy. You remember, and I don't know where Lynette Nutter is now, but you remember some of the players who were on that team. And you always, I remember where I sat. I remember how I set up the equipment. And we did a show on KCR when I was sports director there. We called Az Talk, right? It was me and the rest of the Azholes would sit around and talk Aztec sport, right? And just getting that experience. I remember sitting in the sports arena, 400 people, watching Aztec basketball. And I know people sit around now going, how could that even be, right? Look what Aztec basketball has become. And there's a picture of me with a microphone on a stand and headsets and wearing an old, probably fraternity t-shirt or something. And calling games and Smokey Gaines and Jim Brandenburg and those games. So what did I want to do? I knew I wanted to get into sports broadcasting. I didn't know exactly, and I was willing to take the path, right? What did that mean? Well, it meant getting out of school, getting a job at KUSI TV as an intern, as a grunt boy. I mean, a film guy, a mail boy, a UPS boy, learned how to shoot camera, shoot video and edit and led to Yakima and the career that I went on. But what did I want to do back then? Get into sports broadcasting. And I think probably like you and a lot of people who did what we did, whatever it took, whatever the hours were, whatever, give me a women's volleyball game and I'll call it.
Why San Diego State? You grew up in Southern California, in the Los Angeles metro area. Why San Diego State? I
got accepted. I was an idiot. I still am an idiot. Got out of, when I was in high school, it was like, well, where do I want to go? I had some buddies that were playing down there and I wanted to get away, but not too far away. Grew up in the LA area. And I think I applied to 2 schools, San Diego State and Cal State Northridge. And when I got into San Diego State, it was ideal. It was perfect. I didn't know how perfect it was going to be, honestly. But it was what I knew of San Diego, I loved. What I learned about the university at that point, I thought I loved. I heard there were a lot of girls down there and there were some buddies going down there and it was just a good time and they did have a good journalism department. It was something that I wanted to get into. And I wish, no, I don't, because it ended up the right way. I say I wish because I just went through it with my daughter, the whole college experience and trying, discovery and research. And she applied to schools all over. We toured America, which was great. We didn't have the resources when I was growing up to do that. But it worked out really, really well for me. I don't know. I got really fortunate because I don't think I went through the process probably as in depth as maybe one should, but it worked out perfectly for me.
All right, let's talk about what you do right now. You are the executive director of the Isleta Bowl. And my first question is, what does the executive director do? And the answer is probably, what doesn't the executive director do? So let's get into, look, I work across the street from you, minor league baseball team. We have 150 games and 75 are at home. You have 1 game per year. Like, what does it mean to spend 364 days preparing to have 1 game where you only get 1 shot to make sure that everything goes off smoothly?
Yeah, and the late Nick LeBou, who you used to work with over and was a dear friend of mine, and it was family, used to give me a hard time. You got the 1 game a year, baby boy, 1 game. Yeah, but if I don't get it right, I got to live with it for 365 days. You don't get it right tomorrow, you've got the next day. It is pretty amazing. We're a small staff, and bowls at our level, it's me and 1 other full-time person. And we're an ESPN owned event. So I work for ESPN. So we do have some support back east, with some things, but we are basically running a full business here. It's the 2 of us, and it's operations. It is sales. It is tickets. It's, and it's,
you don't know who's going to be your teams.
No, we don't know. And usually, we've always had 12 days. This year we'll have 18 days to know, or 19 days to know who's going to be in the game and be able to sell tickets. But, you spend the first part of the year, January, February, it's audits, reports, sponsorship fulfillment, chasing down money and paying bills. All the stuff you're like, wow, that sounds awesome, right? and then you start planning next year, and you evaluate your gift, everything from gifting to events to renewing your sponsors to your executive board to what are we going to do off season to be in the community, to engage our stakeholders with a golf tournament here and a happy hour there, and reaching out to people. And you get into the summer and you're trying to sell. And now I'm currently on the, it's called bowl season, the Football Bowl Association. So I'm in my 2nd year on the executive committee for that. So in 3 years, I'll be the chairman, which is, I want you to think of this. This idiot, right, from Camp San Diego is going to be sitting in front of the room, and there's the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl, and I got the gavel. Right? I mean, but it's kind of cool that we're represented again, in that format. So yeah, it's a year. People ask me all the time, like, what do you do all year? Well, I don't show up in December and say, hey, come to our game. I mean, it is a year round full-time thing. Do I play more golf in April than I do in November and December? I do. I mean, is it one of those things? But the other part is now ESPN events for whom we work. We own 17 bowl games. We own almost 40 events, volleyball. And Monica, who works with me, is in Orlando right now working on the ESPN Invitational and the preseason NIT. So we're selling those events. We're helping on those events. So it's year round. What do I do year round? I'm pretty busy, and I love what I do, and I'm insanely fortunate.
So there's only two of you who are full-time, but I've always thought that these types of one-off events are great opportunities for students to get some experience. So whether it's here in New Mexico, whether it's in San Diego, the bowl games there, wherever it is around the country, what are different things that students can think about, can do, so that they can get some experience in whatever these one-off events are?
Yeah, and so for instance, in San Diego, the Holiday Bowl, and what Mark and his staff do down there is they just run such a great event. I know they're moving into Snapdragon this year. There's volunteer opportunities, but we've got a seasonal crew that comes in. So I've got a gentleman who's a professor at Indiana University, Pennsylvania, comes in and he, does grunt work, hauls our officials around, does everything. I got somebody who's coming in to deal with volunteers and bands. Somebody else comes in and deals with our luncheon and our VIP tent. Somebody comes in and does straight hotel hospitality. My operations person who used to be full-time with me, he's coming in from Port Aransas, Texas to run the game. My nephew comes down he's a sophomore, junior now. I guess he's a junior at the University of Oregon. He'll come down and work the game, and everybody fills a lane. And, I got somebody else who comes in to run our pregame fan fest. So there's all kinds of opportunities to get in. I tell people always ask, how do I get in? How do I get involved? How do I start? Go do the grunt work. Go make yourself invaluable. When I was in San Diego, my first round with ESPN, I used to, every time ESPN came to town to do a Charger game or an Aztec football game, I'd be the guy on the sideline holding the parabolic mic for $75 a game. First of all, $75 a game was cash.
Ooh, in the 80s?
I was killing it. And so I did the Holiday Bowl one year. And it's funny how you remember names. The guy's name was Bruce Stevens, the operations manager for whom I was working. And there was a game at the Sports Arena that night, Aztecs and Villanova. Raleigh Massimino was coaching Villanova. And he said, hey, we need a stage manager. Can you do that tonight? I'm like, I'm in. He's all right, report to this guy at 5:00, whatever, go do it. Did the game. It was not very hard. Came back the next day to work the Holiday Bowl because I had a 3-day gig at the Holiday Bowl. Set up, game day breakdown. It was big. And he says, hey, you did a great job last night. They're going to call you every time they come back to San Diego now. You got more work with ESPN. I said, cool, were you there? He says, no. I said, I lied to you. He said, what do you mean you lied to me? And I said, I never did that before. He says, I didn't ask you if you did it before. I asked you, can you do it? You didn't lie to me. Now get your ass back to work. Well, I learned that second, the difference between can you do it and have you done it? Because when they offered me a job to be an executive director of a bowl game, I'd never done it before, but I kind of convinced myself I can do it. And secondly, make yourself invaluable, right? And that's one of the biggest things I tell young people all the time. Get in there, do something, bust your ass, do everything where they need you. And when it comes, that's how I got the job at KUSI when I started. Call me super intern. I produced a Sunday night sports talk show with Phil Stone. And so go find it. Whether it's the Holiday Bowl or whatever it is, go find it and make yourself invaluable.
So for the School of Journalism and Media Studies, the slogan is we make storytellers. Yeah. And storytellers are all shapes and sizes, and it's all different types of industries and platforms and digital and print and all this. You're telling a story with the Isleta New Mexico Bowl. What is the story that you and your staff are trying to tell, whether it's to the fans coming, whether it's the fans coming from other cities, whether it's the people watching the game on TV? What's the story you're trying to tell?
So there's a couple of them. One of them is we're telling the story of college football and how special it is. And there's a story that, in some respects, those of us who are in the college football industry are still fighting to tell. And it's a story that postseason college football is important. And in this day and age with the expanded playoff, there's a de-emphasis on bowl games, which I understand, as the emphasis on the playoff exists. But there is an absolute need and a place for the bowl system. And I'll take San Diego State for an example, although as much as we think we're playing for the college football playoff every year, you get one loss early in the season to Michigan or somebody and you're not. So what is it you're playing for? There's 134 FBS teams, 12 are going to get in. Realistically, 20, 24 have a shot. What's everybody else playing for? And that's the postseason. That's a bowl game. And so last year, we look at the helmets. This was Fresno State and New Mexico State. I had a 10-win New Mexico State and a 9-win Fresno State. Well, those teams weren't getting in the playoff. They wouldn't this year, but don't they deserve a postseason? And people tell me, and they don't tell me anymore because they're done telling me because they're wrong. There's too many bowl games. And I say, why? Well, I mean, who cares about it? Well, then don't watch it. Okay, but let me tell you a few things. ESPN's highest rated 3 weeks of the year bowl season. People will watch the Isleta New Mexico Bowl, the Holiday Bowl, pick your bowl game, right? The New Orleans Bowl, all of the Duke's Mayo Bowl, all of them. And who are you to tell those student athletes that they don't deserve to go to a city and be treated like royalty? Don't watch it is the answer. But what we've done here, so I'm telling the story of college football. Secondly, I'm telling the story of how beautiful and how wonderful the land of enchantment is. Our trophy is Native American pottery that is handmade every year by a couple on the on the Zia Pueblo, because the Zia symbol, the sun in the New Mexico flag, is sacred to the Zia people. So in 2006, when we started this game, I called the governor, the elders at the Pueblo, to get their blessing to use the Zia symbol in the bowl logo, and in return promised to commission their artists to create our awards. Beautiful hand-painted art that tells a story. And each year, Marcellus Medina comes in with his drawings, and he shows me what it all means, and what the warrior means, and what the deer means, and what the flowers mean. And each year there's different colors. And he has tears in his eyes. He says, "This is my favorite one," when he gives it to me. Each year, the Player of the Game award is a handmade shield, Native American shield. It's leather with feathers coming off, hand-painted by a gentleman named Ralph Aragon, another Zia Pueblo artist. It means the world to them. I'm telling the story. On television, we're telling the story of New Mexico with the sandias painted and the bumps in and out and the stuff that we're able to give to the talent, that they're able to tell the story about New Mexico. So a lot of stories. That's a long-winded answer, but I think I'm telling two stories: how great college football's postseason is and to celebrate it, and how wonderful the place that we live is, and people are coming here, and it's helping tourism-wise, it's helping our economy, and I think, after all these years, we've got a great story to tell, and that's why I want to put a bowl game here.
I like it. I like it a lot. We could keep talking about this for much longer time, but because there's so many other things from your career, let's talk about being a talk show host. So Jeff, along with his co-host JJ Buck, 7 to 10 a.m. on the Sports Animal, KNML, Monday through Friday here in Albuquerque.
The app's available. You can listen wherever.
There you go. I'm going to ask this question, and I know that it's impossible to give an answer that's accurate because it changes day to day, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What percentage of what you do is journalism, and what percentage of what you do is merely entertainment?
So hardcore. I was a journalist when I was a television news anchor, when I was a sports anchor, when I was a news anchor. I don't know that I'm a journalist now doing sports talk. I think it's more opinion. I think when you watch CNN or Fox or whatever it is you watch every day, I think I don't know that I think they're journalists. I think they're giving you opinions. But sometimes we do break stories, right? So probably 10 to 15% journalism, and the other is whether it's opinion or entertainment. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to come to grips with that. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna lie. I came up through the journalism school at San Diego State. I considered myself a really good journalist when I was a sports anchor. I was a news anchor. I took a lot of pride in being a journalist and being fair. And now I'm still fair. I'm fact-based, but I came to grips where, most of what you do is opinion-based. If you're going to do 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, it's going to be a lot of opinion. And it did take me a second to just come to grips with, okay, maybe you're not a journalist all the time, and that's okay. That's okay. I see your face, and because it's hard, right?
Yeah, it is hard, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the first time that I was doing sports talk, which was post-game Dodger talk. Mm-hmm. So we're taking phone calls and we're immediately reacting to what happened in the Dodgers game. And I feel so fortunate that my co-host was this guy named Ken Levine. And Ken had been doing this for such a long time. Ken, like, I'm just from the newspaper business to sports talk radio, and I'm still thinking like a reporter. Mm-hmm. And even the way that I talked and the way that I gave information, it's like I was typing a sentence as I was saying it on the air. And then I learned from Ken. He's like, man, it's theater of the mind. He's like, we got to entertain. We can inform, but we got to entertain. We should do it with a smile on our face and kind of a wink at each other as well.
There's a lot to that. And you got to come to grips with your new role, right? Especially when you come up and you're trained. And I say trained, you do something for so long, you become trained. One thing that I have always carried over from my days and is the way I conduct interviews. And I don't believe I don't think I do interviews. I like to consider them conversations, whether it's with someone I'm familiar with or not. For instance, this morning we had the brand new athletic director at the University of New Mexico, and he was named yesterday. And we had a conversation, but I ask questions for the most part that are based on the last thing. Listen, and this is another thing that for young, especially journalists, but I advise this to everybody. I think one of the biggest lost arts in this world is listening. We all want to be heard, but people don't listen. And I think as young journalists, if you're coming up, you will be a better interviewer if you listen. Don't just write down a bunch of questions and you're going to ask them in order. Have a conversation with the person with whom you're interviewing or having, whatever your subject is, or whomever your subject is. And that's something that I always have taken from my days where I consider myself a pure journalist.
Not just saying this because you're here. I think you're really good at interviews. And whenever I listen to your show, those are my favorite ones, actually.
Thank you.
Is like, not your callers. That's
I'm with you.
Right. I don't really care about your callers, but I care when you're doing an interview, which actually leads into, look, the sports talk genre has changed so much. Yeah. Both of us kind of grew up in like the Jim Rome world of like, this is how you do a sports talk show. And so much of it has changed. And I feel like there's always this pull between, well, you got to get ratings or else you're going to go off the air. But then there's, do I really want to talk about the subjects I have to talk about constantly day after day, hour after hour in order to get those ratings versus these are the stories that I think is important. And so where is that balancing act for you?
I have never, nor will I ever be the shock guy. I will never say something on the air that I wouldn't say to someone's face. Okay. So where's the balance for me? I got to look in the mirror first of all, and the guy looking back at me, he's got to be okay with me. It's a fine line, right? You want to be timely. I always try to find a different angle on a big story. Let's take a national story and Aaron Rodgers, and I want to think differently. Okay, what I'm thinking in the car is what I'm going to talk about. I don't want to regurgitate Jim Rome or anybody else. Not that they're not good, but I'm trying to find something different. But I will never be that shock person just to say the outlandish, idiotic thing. And again, I'm not telling you it's the right way. It's the right way for me. Okay. And I've been doing this particular show 16 and a half years, which is a silly run for local radio. And I've been doing this for a minute. It works for me. Josh, I'm comfortable enough with who I am that I will never get into character. Okay. I did this on TV because if I'm having a bad day, I don't want to have to then jump into character. The guy you saw on TV was the same guy sitting in front of you at the dinner table or at the bar having a beer. I've got to be me, and I'm comfortable enough being me. And I will not, like I said, man, if I say something on the radio, I would say it to that person's face. I'm not going to be that guy. So I've done it differently because, yeah, man, you beat the hell out of some stories. So, and there's a reason that they're big stories, right? They're really interesting. So now somebody went, a consultant, which the consultants are wonderful sometimes, and sometimes they're, but one that always stood with me, he called it the brand, like there was a tree, what do you call it? The category tree or something, but just think of branches, right? Okay. Here's the Roger story, and here's this, and just keep branching off and find a niche that maybe is interesting and is unique. And that's always where I try to go with it.
The thing that I think makes sports talk radio so challenging is, look, podcasts like this, someone started listening at the beginning. For the most part, they're going to listen until they're bored and then they're going to stop listening. But they're probably going to listen from the start until the finish. With your show, you never know when someone jumps on. So, for example, I wake up in the morning, I'm going to the gym, I'm listening to you and JJ on my way to the gym. Then I'm in the gym for an hour. Driving back home, I'm listening to you guys, take a shower, eat breakfast. Now I'm in the car on the way to the ballpark. And maybe half of that time is commercials.
Yeah.
And so I might think, oh yeah, there's this big story. I want to hear what Jeff and JJ have to say about this. You guys might have talked about it for an hour, but I missed it. Yeah. And so you're never going to be able to make like how do you kind of reconcile with this is the way we're going to set up our show, knowing that we never know who's jumping in?
So I try to recap the big stuff. We do 3 hours at the top of each hour. I might hit them again. I am, and again, really unorthodox, and I wouldn't suggest anybody do it this way. I don't format my show.
Really?
Never have. If you came in, I've got notes, and it'll just say Rogers, and it'll say Lobos or Athletic, and I put them in an order that makes sense to me, scattered on a sheet of paper, on which by the end of the night the morning's gonna have scribbles all over it, and I go with a flow of a conversation, with JJ and I, and sometimes with input from listeners, whether it's texts or emails or calls. No, but I've got ideas, and the ideas are formulated in my head. I already know what I'm going to talk about. I already know what my opinion on the Cowboy Commanders game yesterday was, with bonkers ending, and how did nobody guard McLaurin, and then he misses the extra point, and then they return the onside kick, and then what the hell? I mean, like, I already know where I'm going with it. But I don't this segment, we're going to do this. And I can't, man. I just could never live that way. And I know that's how almost everybody else does it. I don't, and I wouldn't suggest doing it that way.
A lot of people get their start in sports talk radio, being an intern, working the board, taking phone calls, the grunt work or whatever. How'd you get started?
So I was interning my senior year, my 5th year at San Diego State at KUSI TV. Phil Stone was, at the time, he had been at KNST. He was with NBC Sports calling games. And so we were doing a show. This is before KUSI had news. It was an independent Channel 51, running movies and stuff. We did a show. It was a Padres station called Sports Talk 51 on Sunday nights. And so I interned with them and made myself irreplaceable at that point. I made myself invaluable. Went in, I would go out and do it at Charger camp and do interviews. There's a picture of me and Mark Malone, a young me, right? I mean, and so then they said, hey, we're going to Yuma. This is when the Padres still trained in Yuma. Mm-hmm. They took me to Yuma for spring training. And basically it was me and a guy who had 18 other jobs at the radio or at the TV station were producing Sports Talk 51. And so they presented me with a full season Major League Baseball pass for the San Diego Padres, which is, first of all, 82 meals, okay, for a college kid. Mm-hmm. But I would lean on the batting cage with Tony Gwynn and Roberto Alomar and Benito Santiago. And I remember they sent me to pick up Roberto Alomar one time. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Here's this 19-year-old Puerto Rican. I don't know how much English he speaks. I got to go pick him up. And by the end, we were super buddies. I saw Robbie years later. I was in Yakima. He was with the Blue Jays. He had just signed a big deal, and we were at a Charger game all the way upstairs, and he recognized me and bought me a beer in line all those years later. I got so many great stories from that. But that's how and then when I graduated, they offered me a job, $5.50 an hour, working in the mailroom, editing old Newharts and Batmans, and I took the job, and I worked in master control, which was thankless, man. I would come in, my days off were Wednesday and Thursday, and I worked 2:30 to sign off. So I came in Friday at 2:30 when everybody's on the downshift to Friday, and it's my Monday morning. We were in different moods now. Right, yeah. We were all in different moods, but it was thankless. And I got into production and worked my way up into commercial production. And then when we started news, I became a photographer way in over my head. No way I should have been in that market shooting news, but I shot news and edited, and then I got my first on-air job in Yakima out of that. But that's literally how, you want to talk about the bottom of the TV side. And I'll tell you this though, when I was in TV for all those years, I appreciated what everybody in that television station did, because I did a whole lot of that hard work.
Since we're talking San Diego, other just memories from attending San Diego State, whether it's a class, a professor, fellow students that had an impact on you, like what are some other just like pivotal moments when you look back and you're like, that really helped me get to where I wanted to get?
Yeah, it was, I think of some of the games that I did at Jack Murphy Stadium and called, and there was, and I wish I remembered the professor, because it stuck with me forever, the way I wrote. It was a class teaching me how to write. It was the first TV package I put together, and taught me about some of the words, and I never used the word that. It was just one of those things that stuck. I used the word which, W-H-I-C-H, instead of that, and it affected the way I wrote, and it made me write conversationally throughout my whole career. Some of the PR stuff really helped me. Learning that. And then there was one business class that I took, and I never realized that, the sports business class in the 80s was going to resonate with me. And as I've gone through my career and, you take the turns that you take, like I told you earlier, I was telling my daughter who's a freshman now, I said, whatever you think you're doing now in 20 years from now, let's talk in 20 years, you'll be on a different path. And I changed careers at 40. I'm blessed, but it was the people at San Diego State that really, and I still am so close to so many some of my best friends are still there. My girlfriend laughs all the time. My phone's buzzing at night. Are the Aztecs playing? Yeah, they are. And there's Turtle, and there's Ralph, and there's these, right, and there's Onion Head, and what are they all talking about? Right. And then, damn it, and Aztec fans. God forbid you're losing. So,
right.
But the people were amazing.
When it comes to what you did, the work in TV, let's talk a little bit more about that. And you can answer this, whether it's whatever market, just because you mentioned respect everyone's job. Yeah. And so what came to my mind was just the thought of learning all the different jobs, whether it's A, you might have that job, but B, just understanding everyone's job and how it all makes sense, So
when you're on the air, right, you've all watched a newscast, the tape doesn't roll, or the camera's moving, or whatever. And sometimes you see the anchor just get cranky. I kind of had an appreciation for it. I work with anchors who just get really upset. And like, easy, man. They got a job too. You just flubbed that line, man. You just stumbled. You said that name wrong. You too make a mistake. Mm-hmm. The guy punched the wrong button back there, or they rolled the wrong tape back when we were rolling tape, right? It just made me appreciate. And I'd like to believe, and I got great relationships with almost everybody with whom I've ever worked. It made me a better coworker, a better person. And it's like this now, running a bowl game. I do everything, right? And I don't do it all, but I've done, I've sold, I've been out there hanging banners. I've helped painted fields. When I was working for the hockey team, we were out there painting the ice the night before. Like, I'm not above anything. I won't ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do now that I'm in a position of leadership. But it just gave me an appreciation, Josh, where, gosh, I know what you're going through. And now we can have a conversation later. I'll help you kind of how that doesn't happen again. Mm-hmm. Or, dude, really? Right? But it gave me a better appreciation because just what everybody's doing and why stuff happens.
When it comes to local TV news, all right, this podcast, we could go for 3 hours if we wanted to, right? Or, however long the game is. When you're in local TV news, you got to get to the point quickly. Right? You got a story to tell, but you only have a certain amount of time to tell that story. Whether it was the writing, whether it was the video that you shot, how did your mind work on how I get into this story quickly?
Yeah, so good. So you're thinking it when you're out in the field shooting it. You're thinking how you're going to edit it. And that's one of those things where you're one man banding it. When those days in Yakima, right? When I did everything. I'm producing it. So here's my rundown. I write it. I shoot it. I edit it. Like I put my own makeup on. I did everything but push the buttons right, on the air. You're thinking, how am I going to tell this story while you're shooting it? And I learned that when I was a photographer at KUSI, and there was a story about a baby with AIDS. And I went out as a remember I told you I had no right being a photographer in that market. Came back, handed the editor the tape, went out, shot the next story, came back, and he was waiting for me. And he's like, "What the bleep was this?" I'm like, "What?" I thought I killed it. He comes in, he's like, "How am I supposed to edit this?" It's like, "Look, there's the damn baby sitting on the couch. Then there's the damn baby in the lap. There's the baby on the floor. It's super bleeping baby." Like, I had no cutaways in there, right? But I didn't realize you have to shoot and let the baby walk out of frame and show the mom's hands or show a lamp or something. And he ripped me. But I learned that day. And now, ever since then, I shot to tell the story. I shot when I was shooting the video. It was to tell the story, leading, let the person walk out of frame, come in, shoot from the ground up, just so it looked right. But in TV news, especially in sports, where they get 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, man, it's insane how you got to go. And it's really important to you and the producer didn't care because weather needs 15 minutes. So.
All the consultants say that everyone tunes in for the weather, so we got to do it 3 times in 30 minutes.
God bless it. Yeah.
Maybe the most important question, what's the best makeup tip that you can give us for putting on makeup? You said put on my own makeup. What was your favorite brand? How'd you put it on?
All right, so it was Aveda. So when I got my first job in Yakima, Dave Edel was the news director, and I'll never forget this story. He took me down. He says, let's go home. He was a big 6'6" dude from North Dakota. I said, where are we going? He says, we're going to see the Mary Kay lady. I said, we're going to see the what? And it was in my contract. You know, I got hair and makeup back when I had hair. And we're going to see the Mary Kay lady. And what are you talking about? We go down to Wapato, Washington, just south of Yakima. And we go in and she says, so what shade are you? And I'm like, what shade? She's like, this is so good. And she's putting, you're golden bronze. And she put it on. And then okay, so what you'll do is that, and then you'll put the powder. And she says, okay. And then the blush. And so she's putting blush on my cheeks. And she's like, oh my goodness, this is so good. She's like, do you wear mascara? I'm like, do I wear mascara? Like, what are you talking about? And she says, oh my good, here, look. She said, with your blue eyes and the set, and she puts mascara on, and Edel sitting over there says, looks like you wear mascara, Holmes. So I wore Mary Kay all the way to, and then when I moved here to Albuquerque and my allowance moved up and the Mary Kay lady was still in Wapato, I changed to Aveda. It was much better on my skin.
Okay.
So I peaked out at Aveda, and I haven't worn makeup, although I do have a little bit of powder when I do play-by-play games. I do put a little powder on, but Aveda was my go-to at the end. Better for the skin, Josh.
All right. So as we start to get to the end of this, I want to finish by kind of doing like some compare and some contrast, right? Because this is a podcast for the School of Journalism and Media Studies. Also, San Diego State has an outstanding sports business MBA program. And so I'm going to set this up and I'll let you kind of go with it however you want versus there's a lot of people who want to work in sports and there's so many opportunities of jobs, but it can be overwhelming because of the quantity of jobs. So there's the on-air side of working in sports. And there's a little bit of glamour to that. You know, people see you, you're talking. There's the behind the scenes work that's involved in being involved in whether it's radio or TV. And then there's the business side of working in sports. And so in terms of what someone's personality is, maybe what their ego is, just like what, maybe work-life balance, like what are just some tips that you would give people to help guide them into this might be the better path for you, you know, again, might, based on this or that, based on what you've experienced.
Don't be afraid to try a bunch of different things and figure out what you like and what you don't like. And don't go into something with predetermined notion of what it's going to be. You know, everybody wants to be on the air. Everybody thinks they can do a sports talk show. Everybody thinks they can do play-by-play, right? Everybody, until they do it and they realize, and they can do a Saturday morning show. Can you do 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for 16 years? Like it's not as easy as everybody thinks. You might like the business side of it. You might like the creative side. You might like the operations side. So go in and take the opportunities. Don't say no, especially when you're young. If you're looking for that life balance, probably on the air isn't it, man. You know, my dad was a caterer when I was growing up, and so we were working when everybody else was partying. Well, Josh, you're working when everybody's out having a beer at the ball game, right? You don't go. You don't get to go to a lot of ball games and just hang out. I as a bowl director, I go, and yeah, it's cool, and I get field access, but I'm not sitting in the stands having a beer very often. And so, if you're looking for work-life balance, you want to be home on the weekends, maybe the business side is more your side, right? As opposed to the play-by-play or working evenings and doing TV news and you know, whatever it is. The answer for me is do as much as you can and figure it out. It is so competitive. To do what you and I have been blessed to do. I mean, I think you know how lucky you are, and I know how lucky I am. To get a job calling games, to get a job doing radio. I mean, I wake up every day. I know how damn lucky I am. I don't complain a lot. I got 2 great jobs. I worked my ass off to get, and hope I work my ass every day, or work every day to keep. But the answer to me is, because I didn't know, but when I got fired at the ABC here, they cut 16 jobs that day at the local station. The groups fired 360 people nationwide. I didn't know what I was going to do. They said, you're making the most money. We're cutting sports from 3 people to 2. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And for whatever reason, I went over to the Scorpions office. It was a local hockey team, and Nick LeBou was there. And the owner at the time said, all right, we're going to create a job for you. We're going to the Western Hockey League, or I guess it was the Central Hockey League at the time. Meetings tomorrow. He put me on his private plane over to Phoenix. He said, what do you want your title? I'm like, I don't care. I end up, being the VP of sports and media or entertainment, whatever it was. But I learned that business, right? And it was invaluable. Just do a bunch of stuff and your path will open, but don't be afraid to go through doors.
You haven't really worked in this industry until you've been fired, right? And so what would be your advice for anyone, whatever their place is in their career, in terms of, I remember when I got let go and I didn't want to tell people. I was kind of embarrassed, right? But it wasn't really embarrassed. I didn't want the pity. I didn't want like it's going to be okay, the shoulder, to the side. I didn't want people's pity. Wanted a job though. So what, you just said that, what you did, what are some of the other things that you've done or that you would advise people when you get knocked down in this industry, how you get back up?
All right. So sulk for 24 hours and that's it. And then believe in yourself. I've been knocked down a couple of times and I failed upwards every time. Believe in yourself, right? Play your strengths, play your people. You've got a network. Hopefully, right? The biggest thing is relationships. Who do you know? What do you know? And be aggressive, but don't be stupid about it. And be confident. If you've got a skill, if you believe in yourself, go find that opportunity. When I got the job, I got in a little personality conflict with the news director in Tri-Cities, Washington. I got let go. I flew myself down to Albuquerque. There were 400 something applicants for a weekend sports job at KUAT TV, and I got it. I banged down the door. I proved to them that I was their guy and ended up being the sports director there, right? If you believe in yourself, be confident that you will fail upwards. It's hard not to feel bad for yourself. You get let go, man. It's a blow to the ego. It's a kick in the junk. It is. It doesn't feel good. There's nothing. And everybody, you haven't worked in this business too. You got fired. Okay, cute. Except for when it's you, right? Except for when it's you. But believe in yourself. And again, this work goes back to those open doors, man. You don't know what's coming. But usually opportunity presents itself. And I believe you create your own luck. I really do. And if you do the right thing the right way for the right reason, most of the time the right thing happens. And rely on your relationships. If you've treated people well, let me give you one thing I do a lot. And I think I have really good relationships with people. Usually I hit it. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I go more. I want to make 5 calls a day, or 5 calls a week, not text, I want to make 5 calls a week to people when I don't need something. Right? To people, I don't want to be the guy when my number shows up on your phone. Oh man, what does he need? Because I do, right? I do sell. So I do have to call you sometimes and ask. But I want to call and say, hey, I saw your kid on the news the other day. Hey, how's your mom feeling? It's just a relationship thing. It's just something that's I would strongly suggest to anybody, but it helps, when you need something, people are going to be more apt to help.
I just wrote that down. 5 calls a week. I love that. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Yeah. That's just being a good person.
As a human.
Yeah. All right. Before we wrap it up, anything else that you want to add? Something that I should have asked that I didn't? Anything else you want to add about this conversation?
What you're doing is so cool. And, San Diego State was such a big part of my life. Some of my best buddies are there. When my daughter, 2 summers ago, we were looking at schools. We went down to San Diego State and we did the tour of campus and I showed her, and it's so different, right? When I was, my first day on campus was a Police Oingo Boingo and Madness concert in Aztec Bowl, which, Aztec Bowl is now Viejas, right? But, showing her, we went by, saw the athletic director, J.D. Wicker. We saw the New Mexico Bowl trophy in the football office, all those things. It was so special. It still is. And I love that place, and I'm glad that you're doing this. I think it's so cool that you're highlighting people, and who am I? Some dude from the mid '80s, but it's really cool that you let me tell your story, and I'm super appreciative of it.
Anybody else from San Diego State you want to give a shout out to and brag about? Doesn't matter if they're a journalist or not. I know a bunch of your buddies are on the text chain with the Aztecs, but anyone else that you're proud of you want to share?
I didn't know where to go with this, and it came up during, and I don't know where he is. So remember Doug Scoville, the old football coach, the Return to Glory, which is one of my fantasy team's names this year, Return to Glory, found the old from 86. His son Randy was at San Diego State with me. And we did a lot of radio together. And I don't know, last I heard Randy was up at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo somewhere, but he was big he was a little ahead of me at KCR and at San Diego Sports Team when we were doing games. But I don't know. Last I checked, he was doing really cool things in athletics and in education. And I hadn't thought of him in a second until you asked me that a little while ago. And as we're going through this, I'm like, oh, that's the biggest pressure point of this whole conversation is where am I going to go? Because I've got some, I'm so proud of so many of these guys that have done some great things that I knew and ladies that I knew. How about, and I'm pretty proud of Josh Suchon for what he's done and what he continues to do, man. I've told you this. I'm a big fan of what you do. I think you're so thorough and you're so right on point and you tell such a good story and paint such a great picture. And I'm proud of what you're doing.
Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. I'm proud of you as well. And thanks for taking some time during a busy part of your calendar year. And good luck with this year's Isleta New Mexico Bowl.
Appreciate you, Josh. Thank you.
Once again, that is Jeff Siembieda. My name is Josh Suchon. I'm your host for the Where You At podcast. This episode is the final episode of this semester. We're not going away. We're just going on hiatus. We do this around Christmas and the winter break. We will be back with more episodes in the spring semester. So enjoy all of the holiday seasons. Go Aztecs, and we will talk to you again in the spring. This is the Where You At podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Where You At podcast. This is Devin Watley from the class of 2021. Thanks to Martine Marine for creating the music you're hearing right now, and Alex Piscatelli for her work on the podcast name and artwork on social media. And a reminder to SDSU alums, we really want to know where you're at. Tell us about your career. Get involved in the school. There's many ways you can do this, from donating your time or money, mentoring students, to even speaking in classrooms, in person, or on Zoom. Your work can help us grow the program and create more opportunities for our students to succeed. Again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Recommend us a future guest. And go Aztecs.